Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the next and biggest MMA YouTube channel on the platform in the future, obviously. Currently, a little scuffed, as you can tell, recording on the Turtle Beach headset. No banner, but all work in progress. Always room to improvement. It's all good. Now, I thought a good first video would be a video showing you some of my favorite fighters in each division, giving you kind of a breakdown on them, and then you can kind of see what kind of styles I like and who I root for. I think it'll be kind of apparent what kind of fighters I like by lightweight, but nonetheless, let's get started. So, to start with flyweight, not a lot of fighters that I like in flyweight currently. I think the division is pretty boring, especially with Pantoja beating just about everybody. But there is one fighter that I think is going on a Charles Oliveira-like run currently, and that fighter's name is Charles Johnson. Now, Charles Johnson had a rough start to the UFC, lost to Muhammad Mokaev, did not get finished though. You will see that a lot of fighters get finished by Muhammad Mokaev in the later rounds. He's a very good finisher, boring as shit though. Charles Johnson went to a decision against him. I think he had one more loss after that, and then they tried feeding him to this undefeated Kyrgyzstan fighter. I know Dana was definitely thinking that he found the next flyweight Shavkat, but Charles Johnson got rocked pretty bad in the first, lost the first pretty badly if I remember correctly, then came back strong to win the next two rounds and win the fight. Then he went against Joshua Van. I thought Joshua Van was very good, but people were glazing him heavy. He got dropped by Kevin Borjas, who absolutely stinks. And I think he was booked against Tagir Mbekov, who I was definitely picking him to beat Joshua Van in the first place, but they rebooked him to fight Charles Johnson. I thought Charles Johnson was also going to win that, as I thought Charles Johnson has a very good pace, and that's what won him the fight. In the third round, he put a huge pace on Van and knocked him out. Now, another fighter that I also like in the flyweight division, not that much, it's just a fighter that I don't mind watching every time I see him on a card, and that'll be Brandon Royval. He has a very Tony Ferguson-like style, as just where he throws out literally everything. He doesn't fight like Tony Ferguson at all, but I mean in the way that he just kind of throws out a bunch of shit. His fights against Kai Kara France were pretty good. His first fight against Pantoja was really good. The second fight was meh, but I never mind to see Brandon Royval. Yeah, we can move on to the next division, starting with bantamweight. So bantamweight, I like a lot of fighters in bantamweight. So it was kind of hard for me to pick top two, but I think right now the fighter I like the most in bantamweight is Jose Aldo. I like a good old vet, like a good vet with a good run. I think he's being very disrespected too by the UFC. They gave him a good matchup in Jonathan Martinez. I thought a fight that most people thought he was going to win, but they ranked him at like 9th or something when he should be top 5. He has a lot of wins over like Chito Vera, Rob Font. He should be up there, way past number 9. Now they're putting him against Mario Batista, another prospect, which I think is upsetting. I think they should have gave him at least somewhere in the mid-range. I think him versus Jan would have been a good rematch, or him versus Figueiredo, but Figueiredo's on a good win streak, so it'd be kind of disrespectful to him to give him Jose Aldo. But I think that I don't know if he'll ever become champ or if he'll go much farther. I think after Mario Batista, he'll get a pretty hard matchup. But yeah, moving on, Petr Yan. Now you're gonna see in the future when he fights. I love trolling Petr Yan fans. I'm not a big fan of the whole downloading style. I think it gives people way too much leverage to make excuses for the fighter. No, he was downloading. No, I just think that Yan doesn't throw a lot and gets hit very early and lands very good clean shots. I think he needs to fight a lot more like he did in the Sean O'Malley fight, where he's just on, and the Yadong fight. Well, in the Yadong fight, he just kind of skilled him and as Bedtime MMA would say, out vetted him like a crafty vet, or Lucas Tracy. Some other fighters that I like in the division, I do like Chito Vera, I do like Figueiredo, and I do like Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley is probably the best overall striker in the UFC right now. It's impossible to beat him. I don't think anyone's going to be. I think Umar could if he mixes it up, but I still don't even think Umar. I also like Umar. I do think his fans are a little crazy. I think a lot of the Dagestani guys have a bit of a crazy fan base, but Umar deserves a little bit because he's got a combination of both. Moving on to featherweight. So at featherweight, might be a little basic, but ever since his first short notice fight against a ranked opponent where he put on a fantastic performance, I was on this train since the start. Diego Lopez. Now, Diego Lopez, a lot of people are switching up on him, picking up Brian Ortega. I'm sorry to tell you, Diego Lopez is finishing Brian Ortega in the first round. Ortega is just not the same anymore. He looks super sloppy against Yair. His chin is deteriorating. Got dropped really, really bad by Yair, who has like no power in his hands. It wasn't like a kick or anything. He dropped him with his hands. I think Diego Lopez will finish him the first. Now, I don't know if he'll ever win a championship because his fighting style is just not built to last. He is just full send going for a finish 24/7. And we saw against Dane Ige that he can't sustain that for even 3 rounds. So I think eventually he's going to have to do a bit of a pace change or a fighting style change so he can be like a more well-rounded fighter and fight for 5 rounds. Now, honorable mention for featherweight. Now, you may see that Jerome Holloway is there, but you might see a little guy behind him that he beat the shit out of, obviously. Calvin Kattar, I love Calvin Kattar. For a while, Calvin Kattar was my favorite featherweight. And then he got robbed by Josh Emmett. Would have had an interim fight against the year. It would have been crazy. And then he blew his ACL out against. You're gonna see a common thing about ACLs with some of the fighters I like. Loved Calvin Kattar. He was probably my second favorite fighter in the UFC in general. But since he's been on a losing streak, we were supposed to have him fight this weekend, but he pulled out due to his ACL again. But I love Calvin Kattar. If he gets one more win, he probably bounces back up to the second spot. But right now, I think Max Holloway's little like the plot he has going on is really crazy. The Gaethje KO, crazy. Literally the craziest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if he'll beat Ilya. That's a very hard fight for me to call, to be honest. I'm gonna have to look more into that as soon as it comes up. But yeah, Max Holloway, great. Who doesn't love Max Holloway? Very fun fighter. Has some of the funnest fights in the UFC. And yeah, so we're gonna move on to lightweight. Now, I don't know how obvious this is gonna be, but there's a certain guy at lightweight that I really, really like, and his name is Gamrot. Just kidding, it's Rafael Fiziev. Obviously, in the profile picture on the screen right now, I love Rafael Fiziev. He got robbed against Gaethje, got eye poked against Gaethje. One of those was a joke. I'm not gonna let you know which one it is. I think he's soon to come back soon. He just tweeted today, I think, he wants to fight with Dan Hooker. As much as I would love to see that, I'm thinking more of like a Jalen Turner, only because he's ranked 9th, and Dan Hooker said he's looking more for like a title shot. But if they got the Dan Hooker fight, I would love that as well. I think he mauls Dan Hooker on the feet. Gamrot was dropping Dan Hooker, and I mean, let's be free here. I'm a big Gamrot hater, obviously, for certain reasons. But for second, there's a lot of usually. So I would go Charles Oliveira most of the time for second, but that's a very common take. So I wanted to go something a little out of the way here. Slava Claus, baby. I love Slava Claus. Anytime I see him fight, he's my number one fighter I'm rooting for on the card, unless he's on the card without Rafael Fiziev, of course. I love a good Slava Claus fight. Now, it is hard being a Slava Claus fan. Dude has no chin. He's got absolutely mauled by Chase Hooper, and he was going to win against Nazim, a very great prospect, but got 10-8'd and almost murdered in round 2. But he has great fights. The Nazim fight, watch that fight, fantastic fight. His fight recently, I don't remember the name of the guy he was fighting, was a very good technical fight as well. Almost got robbed in that fight too. He got eye poked and the dude knocked him down after. Regardless, love a Slava Claus fight. Very tight with everything he does. Great fight. Great fighter. Now, moving on to welterweight. Welterweight's also a division that I don't have many fighters that I'm very great fans of, but there is one fighter who I think is bringing a lot of light to the division. People like JDM and Shavkat. Shavkat recently has got a lot more talkative, but JDM is not a very talkative person, so he's kind of hard to promote him. But someone who is very talkative and I think will win his next upcoming matchup is Joaquin Buckley. Now, people will be like, oh, Joaquin Buckley got knocked out by Kevin Holland or whatever. He was 22. People don't realize that he was super, super young when he got in the UFC and at middleweight. Now he's got down to welterweight. He's done really good for himself. They tried feeding him to Nursultan, I think his name was. He beat the shit out of that guy. And now he's booked against Wonder Boy. Now people are going to be like, oh, can't we see another Wonder Boy masterclass on some random bum? Nope, Buckley's winning it. I think Buckley can knock him out, and I also think Buckley can mix in the grappling, the wrestling, the striking, as Bilal Muhammad would say, to win a unanimous decision as well. It's especially the way you saw Gilbert Burns do it. I think Joaquin Buckley is better than Gilbert Burns on the feet, and I think he doesn't have as good wrestling as Gilbert Burns, but he can mix it in just as well. I think to get a win over Wonder Boy, and I would love to see him get to a title shot because he just loves talking. His promo when he tried to get the fight in Louisville, I think it was, to fight Nursultan. I think it was the UFC 300 press conference where he snuck in and tried to get a fight from Dana. Great promo, great fighter. I love him. Moving on, Gabriel Bonfim. Now, I was super, super big on the Bonfim brothers when they first came in, and then they both got fraud checked. It took a little bit longer for Gabriel. Ismail got subbed by Benoit Saint Denis, which isn't as bad as a loss now when you see. I don't think Benoit is as good as people think he is, but getting subbed by him isn't bad, especially when you rewatch that fight. Ismail was doing pretty good in the fight. Gabriel got fraud checked by Nicholas Dalby. Um, but Nicholas Dalby is shown to be a cardio monster who can fraud check a lot of other fighters. He did pretty good against Renat Fakardinov not too long ago, and I still think he has a very bright future. He has very good striking, very good grappling. I think he could rap. I think he could get. I think he's a lock for the top 15 in the welterweight eventually. I don't know if he'll win a title or anything like that, but I think I like him. He's a very fun striker, very fun grappler. Wraps up submissions like instantaneously, crazy. It's a very fun style for me. Now moving on to middleweight. Now, middleweight, I think, is getting a lot of life to it recently. And the fighter that I like the most currently is Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira was people were not liking because he kept missing weight at welterweight, which I understand, but he was killing everybody. And now, ever since he moved up to middleweight, he is literally just mauling everyone. I remember when everyone picked McCall, Erlen Jake. I can't say his name. My fault. Everyone was picking him to beat him, which I thought was absurd, and then he absolutely mauled him in like a minute and 30 seconds. The Fluffy Hernandez fight's going to be a very tough one, but that's a very good fight, and I think that he could definitely, especially with like the middleweight, welterweight skill discrepancy, I think that he can. His striking is very high above most strikers in the middleweight. I think he can beat a lot of fighters. I don't know. I think he can get to top 5 as well. I think he could stop by like a Jared Cannonier or someone who could really hurt him on the feet. He is very wild. But like him. Now the second one's gonna be a little weird as well. Bruno the Hulk Fajea, baby. Now, did he get knocked out by Nolston? Yes. Was a fluke. Short notice. Long as shit, dude. What are you talking about? But what gets me? I love spinning elbows. His spinning elbow knockout of Dustin Stoltzfus literally retired him. If you look at his Dustin Stoltzfus Instagram, he literally retired him. He's like, I don't know when I'm gonna fight again. I don't know what's gonna happen. He like shattered like a bunch of bones in my face. Like he's insane. I think he's fun. He always comes in for a knockout. Knockout Gregory. I think people forget that he like slept Gregory Rodriguez bad, and Gregory Rodriguez is a very good like top 20 floater middleweight. I think he could even get to the top 15, and he's on a pretty good streak right now. Knocked out Phil Hawes. Not the craziest. Doesn't have really much of a chin, but I think his win against Dustin Stoltzfus was pretty good. He was getting kind of hit a little bit. But he's next against Abus. I think he can beat Abus. If he gets out the first round, you win. Abus sucks, has no cardio. But moving on to light heavyweight. Now, light heavyweight, love this man, right? I just think I hate loving him because I think once his athleticism fails him, he's gonna have one of the worst downfalls ever. He's like a Tony Ferguson in my eyes. That's Yuri Prohaska. Sorry, I look at him. He's just staring right at you. Like most people in their pictures, like you can go back here. Like they're all standing sideways. Yuri is just full centered, staring right at you. Like why are you looking at me like that, Yuri? Anyway, I love Yuri Prohaska. He's always going for a finish. His style, his performance against Rakic is what put him up there for me. He was a dog. It just was eating so many shots, so many leg kicks. Rakic was the best he ever did in a loss because Yuri just outgritted him and won. It was very sad to watch him get literally murdered by Alex Pereira, but it's Alex Pereira, you know what I mean? And I would usually go Alex Pereira as my second here, but I also I don't want to go for common fighters. So Khalil Roundtree. Now, when his fight with Alex Pereira comes up, you're going to hear me talk a lot of shit about Khalil Roundtree, and that is because some of his, he has a lot of TikTok fans. His fans are the craziest people of all time. He's a very fun striker, very good person. In general, he's a good guy. But he is glazed to space for no reason. He robbed Dustin Jacoby, clearly. Very clear robbery of Dustin Jacoby. And he got knocked out by Johnny Walker, and his best win is Anthony Smith. I don't think people realize that he wasn't doing the greatest. In the first round, it was a very close-esque kind of striking battle, and then he finished him in the second, if I remember correctly. And people also forget he was coming off of a PED. I don't care if he admitted it and it was a tainted supplement. He's coming off of a failed PED test. He was also going to be fed to Azamat Murzakanov, who I think probably would have beat him too, but then had a short notice replacement of Anthony Smith, which has now got him to this title shot, which is crazy to think about that he was meant to be a feeder and is now fighting for the title. But I like him. He's a very fun striker. His style is fun. Good person. It's just I don't like his fans. So when it gets to that week of him fighting Alex Pereira and I cover that fight, you're gonna see me really hating on him only because of his fans and people thinking that he's that good. He's gonna get slapped in like a minute by Alex Pereira, sadly. But it is what it is. And moving on to the final division, heavyweight. Another division like flyweight where there's not really a lot of fighters that I like. It's dead. Like literally, the division's dead currently. Besides if Tom Aspinall retired right now when John Jones and Stipe were gone, because they're essentially gone. Literally, what do you have? You have Curtis Blades as the number one contender. Cyril gone. Like what? This is the most boring division in the UFC right now. But now, this is gonna be crazy, right? Chris Barnett. I love a good Chris Barnett win. Now, if I made a YouTube channel when he won against I can't remember the name of the dude. God damn it. His last win, where he kind of comeback and was getting his ass beat in the first round. I have never been more excited for a fighter winning ever. He has gone through a lot of shit. When he won his first kick with the wheel kick, the fight after he took a short notice fight when his wife was dying. Like she was dying and he had to go fight. Lost that fight, and I think he got eye poked and shit in that fight too. But then he won his fight after, and I was ecstatic. I love Chris Barnett. He isn't good at all. He freaking stinks. But he's always fun to watch. He's a very fun guy. He is the first fighter to miss weight in the heavyweight limit. Crazy to think about, but it's also kind of funny. And besides him, I like Volkov. I think people need to respect Volkov a little bit more. I think he's like a Robert Whittaker of the heavyweight division, where he's there. He's beating a lot of people that come up. He's getting a lot of finish wins recently. I love Tai Tuivasa, and he killed him. He beat the shit out of Tai Tuivasa. I also think Volkov's back tattoo is sick. I think him and Tom Aspinall both have one of the I'd tie them both for the best back tattoo in the UFC. I love back tattoos, especially like the giant like sculpture ones, as well as my favorite. Yeah, those are gonna be some of the favorite fighters that I like in each division. Tell me some of the fighters that you like in each division. Tell me some fighters that you don't like. Also, tell me some things that I could work on, maybe make some videos better. First video, obviously, never kind of done this thing before, but I plan on doing a lot more. I will be doing fight companions probably after Noche, but I will be covering cards like Noche, doing predictions, things like that. I have a couple video ideas in the works here, so you're gonna see a lot from me here soon. Anyways, this is Toast MMA signing out.